Good afternoon, everyone. Mario Quintero here with the One Stop Shop, produced by marioshomenews.com for our weekly Thursday happy hour. Glad you could join us this afternoon. This is one of the segments that I really enjoy doing because it has a lot of drama and it has a lot of excitement. And this is what we get paid to accomplish on behalf of our clients. So, what are the 88 turbulences that can occur in a real estate or mortgage transaction? We're talking real turbulence here, and there's no seatbelts like the pilot says when you're on an airplane. When you're on an airplane and you're going to hit turbulence or you're in the middle of turbulence, you basically put your seatbelt on and you let the pilots do their work to get you safely to your destination. Well, our team, the One Stop Shop, the Quintero team members, we're all highly experienced full-time professionals and consultants in the real estate and mortgage world, and our specialty is to get our clients through the various turbulences that will occur. They're guaranteed that something's going to happen during the process, and our experience and our job is to get you through as the client, to get you safely to the closing table so that you can achieve your goals and dreams. So we actually have a list of the 88 turbulences that can occur in a real estate or mortgage transaction. We review these lists with our clients, not to scare them, but basically to establish some good expectations for what can possibly happen from start to finish. Okay? So let's break these down into various categories so you have a better understanding where the turbulence can occur. First of all, the actual buyer or the borrower, okay, there could be information that they forgot that happened in the past that will show up in the future, and these are things that we will have to overcome to assist the buyer or the borrower through the transaction. And there's actually like 32 things that can go wrong if they forgot some information on their personal history, their credit report, prior bankruptcies, maybe a foreclosure, a short sale that occurred 10 years ago. There's a bunch of stuff that can happen. So on the other hand, there's turbulence that we may have to overcome on the seller side. And I'm going to give you an example of one that we're working through right now. So there's things that the seller can face that cause turbulence in the transaction. There's turbulence that occurs between the realtors. Usually when you have two highly experienced realtors, even if there's turbulence, it'll get negotiated and it'll be worked out. If you get an experienced realtor like we are, and you get an inexperienced realtor and they have no clue on what to do, that could be a problem, because then the transaction can get stuck. They don't know how to reach out for help, and that could present a problem if they don't take the time or the effort to go to their broker or somebody in compliance in their office to get some guidance. So the next one is the lender. In the majority of cases, there's a lender involved. That means that there's a processor involved, there's an underwriter involved, there is a closing team that is involved, there's a funding team that is involved in that process just with the lender. At any stage of those four things that I just mentioned, there could be turbulence, and our processors and our loan officers are the ones that have to face that in order to assist our buyer or our client to get to the closing table. The property itself. There can be issues with the property, unforeseen issues. There could be mold. There could be leaks that were not seen before. There could be leaks coming from the upstairs, or if it's a condo, from an upstairs unit. There could be a multitude of things. And when those things occur, we have to overcome them in the best interest of the client. Then you have the escrow and title company, okay? Where are the deposits being held? Are there any lien problems? Are there any problems with the HOA that are uncovered by the title company? Are there any past history that comes up all of a sudden on the property that nobody was aware of? So once again, I'll have an example of something that we just faced recently and what the outcome was. The appraiser. The appraiser is an independent person that works for an appraisal management company, which is a national company. They have no allegiance to the buyer, the seller, the lender. They're just there to do their job and get to a value for the property that is going to be used by the lender and the contract that we have in place. So the appraiser is an independent entity, and whatever their outcome is, it can be challenged, but it's very difficult to overcome that challenge. The last one is inspections. You know, when we go to list a property, we do a full inspection of the property prior to putting it on the market, because we want to make sure we know of anything that could be possibly wrong with the property, cure it before we put it on the market so we don't run into any turbulences on this one. We're going to have an example of one that recently occurred on a vacant listing that we are selling that took everybody by surprise. So let's look at, before we get into specific examples, if you have any questions about our podcast today, feel free to call me here at the office at 305-598-1600 or on my cell at 305-588-0451, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Let's get into some current examples that we have just navigated recently or are in the process of navigating. We had a condo that we recently closed on, and when the buyer went to do the inspection, they found that there was water in the closet that held the water heater, and that water was seeping out into the hallway. So we had to get the HOA involved. The HOA had to open up the wall in the hallway, determine that it was one of the pipes that they manage in the building. They repaired it and closed up the wall. We were able to send a report to the buyer's realtor with pictures of exactly what happened, and from that point on, the transaction went to close and we had no additional problems. But here's a situation where the leak was inside the wall. Thank God there was no mold that had accumulated, and the transaction closed successfully. Number two, we had a situation that we're but the buyer has the opportunity to cancel and get their deposit back. We have a situation that we never had something like this before, but the seller had several liens on the property that were HOA liens. And the seller was trying to cure the liens so that we could secure proper title for our buyer. The seller in January, for whatever reason, had a fight at home, was asked to leave his home, and he moved into the condo that our buyer was buying as an investment property. Obviously, these personal problems for the seller started to add up, and then as he approached taking care of the liens, the amount of money that he had to pay to cure was a lot more than what he intended. So our last extension that he needed to sign so that we can hopefully close in February, he decided not to sign the exception, default on the contract and get out of contract, and basically just return the escrow to our buyers and cancel the contract. So this was an unforeseen matter. In this case, our buyer could not claim the cost of the appraisal, the inspection, and the HOA fees that he paid for application. And now we're going to move on and try to find a new unit for our buyer. We have another situation that everything was going smooth, and the seller had a pending mortgage with a balance of like $9,000, and it was a private loan out of Minnesota. And when the title company went to secure the final payoff, we find out that the lender, a private lender, had passed away, and that in order for us to secure a final payoff to be able to close on the transaction for our buyer, that there needed to be a probate done in Minnesota by the family of the lender, an elderly woman, and then we would be able to secure the payoff. It's my understanding that this week we finally got a resolution to that, and hopefully we will be closing on that purchase for our buyer between now and the end of February. Again, an unforeseen legal matter that nobody could see prior, because even the seller was making payments on a monthly basis and the checks were being cashed, so the seller didn't even know that there would be a probate matter. The last one is when you involve a third party, in this case a CPA or a bookkeeper. We have a situation in a refinance situation that the CPA is playing a pivotal role in documenting that the information that the client has submitted on their IRS taxes, documents for their business, that they need to confirm that he, as the CPA, has been working on this client's taxes for a number of years and has been requested to supply a P&L for 2021, a year-to-date for 2022, and verify that everything is still the same. Easy process, right? Unfortunately, the CPA only works at night. We have problems communicating with them during the day. They're never available during the day, and the only thing we get is a response at night via email. So I think we're almost there, and hopefully we'll close that transaction sometime next week. But it's been a little frustrating over the last 3 or 4 weeks because the CPA is not available. So if you have any questions about turbulence and what can happen and the different categories and how we get through these things and navigate them, remember, in a real estate and mortgage transaction, you don't have a seatbelt. What you need to have is an experienced team of professionals that are out this full time, that do this day in and day out. Because if you hit one or more of these turbulences, you're going to need a team that is experienced. If you have any questions regarding anything I talked about today, my name is Mario Quintero. The office number is 305-598-1600, and my cell phone is 305-588-0451. Thanks for joining us today. You have a great weekend, and pass this along to your friends and family in the event that they can use this.